Also a medical doctor, member of the Ways and Means and Veteran Affairs Committee. So a lot of topics we could get into tonight with you, Congressman. But let's start with DOJ if we can. And people say, well, is defense going to be on the table? So that's part of the larger discussion, whether there was a China briefing or not, or whether it was canceled or ever planned. What about that in terms of what Musk can do at the Department of Defense and how aggressive you think he should be? What would you say?
Sure. Connell, I think we've a little bit, and I'm going to say this for Republicans, a little bit lost our narrative in saying why all this is going on. Why are we looking at all these cuts and budget trimming initiatives? Our debt is spiraling out of control, and the Republicans and Democrats are at fault of this. And so literally everything, Connell, in the federal government is on the table. Where can we cut and not reduce benefits? Where can we cut and not hurt our military? The fact that Musk is going over there and talking with officials as well within his purview, he has a top secret clearance, and my understanding, because of what he's done with SpaceX. So, you know, I don't know what was on the table. I don't trust the New York Times to tell the truth in anything, much less this particular story. But, you know, Musk is able to do what the president allows him to do.
Robert Sherman, who's one of our White House correspondents, was there in the Oval and did ask about what you and I are talking about. And I'm going to play that right now in the president's response. This was earlier today.
Okay.
Mr. President, what do you say to American military families who are seeing Elon Musk at the Pentagon today, are hearing about Defense Department cuts, and their thoughts are immediately going to the safety of their loved ones who are currently deployed?
Well, we're making our country strong. And when they see a thing like that and they hear that story about Elon and China, what they should do is realize that the New York Times is a corrupt institution. One of the things that I know that Pete's doing is he's talking about a lot of the civilian staff, and we're going to get them other jobs. You know, we're going to have a lot of jobs in this country.
All right. So what would you say about cuts at the Pentagon? By the way, the same day that we're introducing this new line of fighter jets, this F-47.
Yeah, you know, look at what President Trump is doing as compared to the last 4 years ago. We became a nation that the rest of the world laughed at. President Trump's, one of his main initiatives is to make us strong again. And for us to go, I mean, for the president or Musk to go after our fighting ability is insane. And what we're trying to do is trim fat, try to get back to making us sure that we have a lean, mean fighting force. And we're spending money the right way. You know, not pouring thousands of dollars into a golden toilet or some other nonsense that has been heard of in the past. We need to get back. The adults have the checkbook again to saying what's right, what's a good expenditure, what's not as good an expenditure, and then, you know, try to clean up the mess.
I do feel like that brings up a larger conversation that I wanted to have with you anyway about something that you care a lot about, which is, you know, Medicare, Medicaid, and health-related programs. Because the same thing could be said, right? If you go to the Defense Department and you say, well, we just want to trim the fat, but is there enough there to really make a dent to all the trillions and trillions of dollars in debt? Same thing with, you know, Medicaid. They said, well, they're not going to really cut the program. We're just going to find fraud. We're going to find mistakes, and we're going to correct them. Is it really enough, though? That's good. I think that's what the question's going to be.
Yeah, I can't answer that completely. I don't know. But Connell, you know, as someone who actually still sees patients, I still see really a majority, seemingly, of patients on Medicaid, most of whom absolutely are eligible. But the fact that the Biden administration only allowed once a year, if that, to go back and audit their Medicaid rolls, I see plenty of people who I know do not deserve to be on Medicaid, but come in with their Medicaid card. So many of those individual things, we get back to actually making the system work for those who are eligible, the elderly poor, pregnant women, children, the disabled. Let's get back to getting the money so we can actually spend it properly.
You see that? Thanks so much for watching. Just go to joinnn.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.